Galleon, this is Mayor Tom O'Leary, back on another Monday night. Have a few comments, a few topics to introduce the evening, and then we'll get to questions in a few minutes. Last week, I know it was appreciated because I watched those comments that attempt to provide a little tribute to now former Chief Brian Satterfield. The way that bounced around the social media, I'm sure I think people who saw it got the message, and I was thinking if you saw it like Brian out at the grocery or something, or that you would tell him thanks, but people were thanking him over and over again on the internet, and that's pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff about this Facebook media that I could go on about that isn't a whole lot of fun, and folks misuse it and all those kind of things. But that'd just be a downer. And then on the weekend, I would have to say that whoever scheduled the two events that I went to, the ones they invited me to, we'll say, were among the nicest, best organized and executed retirement parties I've ever been to. So I think that says a lot about Brian, his friends and family. But I think probably the most obvious thing is it says a lot about the chief and how people in the profession and in the community felt about him. So that's a good thing. Before I move off the topic of the police chief, I want to just talk a little bit about tomorrow night and our hopes that we'll incorporate a swearing in at the beginning of the city council meeting. Matt and I were just talking about how to do it logistically, so if we swing and whiff on it, I know for sure we'll have Chief Rodriguez being sworn in and accompanied by a lot of family members. Now, whether or not I get back on the meeting, on the Zoom meeting for the rest of the meeting, time will tell. But so we'll start off right around 7 o'clock tomorrow night with a swearing in that would have City Council part of it, and so that's the biggest updates, if you will, on the new police chief. A couple of other things that I could probably anticipate in questions, but let me take the lead and answer some of those and tell you my story about the Amtrak announcement that became public Friday. Thursday night, sitting at home, I think I was multitasking. I was talking to a couple people, and a text came in. And it was from a media person. He asked me, if I had a comment on Amtrak's announcement. So that was the first that the city of Galleon knew that there was a opportunity, a window to communicate with Amtrak, and perhaps my mistake, but I still think at the end of this whole process, as it was described by the Amtrak representative, this whole process, I was spending my time talking with the railroads. After all, they own it. Now we can get into whether Amtrak has a right to do what they want on the nation's railroads. That might be a whole fun discussion. In fact, next Saturday on the 22nd at Depot Days, I'd expect a lively discussion of this topic, and in some of the it's not seminars, but some of the speakers or presenters that'll be there. So, in any case, there was no opportunity to submit, and I guess, as some might say, kudos to Crestline to get out ahead of it. But clearly it's a long way from being completed, and my support, this may sound like sour grapes, some incorrect, foolish people might say, well, you're just mad, you take this position because you're just mad Galleon wasn't considered. Nah, it's not. I'm mad, I don't want to lie about that, but one of the conditions that we absolutely have, and I made it clear to the county commissioners this morning in a separate meeting, that without a grade separation, meaning overpass on Portland Way South, we can't possibly be in favor of a passenger train. For sure, the biggest interaction, complaint, far and away, that we hear in this office about the railroads is blocking the darn crossings. And without getting into a discussion or debate, because it's really not much of a debate among people that understand the layout of the railroad in and around Galion, that even 6 passenger trains a day will add to the congestion on freight trains trying to get on that same piece of track. So if you think in your mind's eye, that traffic that blocks Portland Way and often Railroad Street, that traffic is trying to get north for the most part, the trains that block Galion, and it will be oftentimes, if and when the passenger goes through, it will have to wait until that passenger train comes through. I don't want to get into too much about it, I just want to make one more point, that in terms of track usage, one small passenger train occupies the same track space as 5 freight trains. So it's like, you'll hear in this discussion whether there's too much or there's enough track out there for everybody. You probably won't hear that often, but remember, I mentioned this early in the discussion, and so it's not simply introducing 6 trains a day, short little trains, but it's the impact that it has because of the distance at the speed at which it will travel. So, a lot to be said. I don't want to head off questions, but I had a what the heck's going on here, and then I spent my day Friday. Galion wasn't included in the announcement, and that's okay, I guess, too, but talking with the railroads, talking with the state of Ohio. I might add that the state had very little interaction. The State Rail Commission wasn't invited to this announcement either, so maybe my experience is dated, but I think for the most part, to get this train up and running, they're going to need close cooperation with the state. After all, they're in charge of grade crossing improvements, and any overpasses, they would play a lead role in that. And I think fundamentally, let's turn this into an all Amtrak thing and then become an Amtrak hater like I'm a Free Center hater. You offer one comment anymore about something and people think you're absolutely against it. It's more than just humorous. It's kind of bad for a healthy discussion. But anyway, if there are 2 things for Amtrak to be successful in Ohio that I think are real important, and you see them in states that are making progress on passenger rail. Virginia, and I won't digress into the story of Virginia, but they're working collaboratively, cooperatively, kind of insightfully about acquiring these lines and more control over them, rather than coming in and using a federal mandate to demand track time and track space. So I'm all about working with the state to get as many safety improvements as possible. There can't be any passively guarded, meaning no gates and lights, crossings in that whole darn corridor. I mean, almost everybody might want to take that train, and you wouldn't want to be on there at one of these crossbuck only crosses, and 70-mile-an-hour train comes roaring up the track. So that's a absolute, in my mind, prerequisite. And then I've always been and had a chance to participate in the construction of railroad grade separations, and those are critical wherever there's passenger and freight trains, and you can't build enough of them, and so those 2. You hear a lot among the train buffs about frequency and time of day and getting the freight out of the way and a whole bunch of things like that. On what's called wayside signaling, signaling among the trains, signaling to warn the public, and grade separations to absolutely separate trucks, cars from 70-mile-an-hour trains. You know, that's got to be part of it. And my experience, it's not vast, but it's, 5-6 years of it, is that the railroads respond real well to that approach. And announcing that you're going to come onto their property with something without even talking to them, that's really not the way that I found success with Amtrak. So, for people in Crestline that hear this, you might say that that's the value of free advice, Mayor O'Leary. So mind your own business. But I think it's real important to focus on safety, gates and lights, overpasses, wayside signaling. If we're going to do it, we better do it safely. So if that didn't provoke any questions, that means there are like 25 of us, Matt, in the whole town that are into the trains as much as we are at the city and the work that gets done at the depot. So anyway, that's what I have on those two topics. Tomorrow night, last thing. Do we have questions?
Not yet. If
Okay.
anybody has anything, submit them now.
Okay, so the only piece of legislation on tomorrow night's council meeting is a second reading on the idea of putting the water and sewer necessary to increase infrastructure in the Brant Road development area. Okay, that's the generic, that's the least provocative way of describing it. One could also say, yeah, it's water and sewer lines coordinated with state funding for the roadway, back to what folks want to describe as the free center. So whether it's just infrastructure development for that north end, which I think is logically the area of Galion that has the greatest potential for growth, or if it's infrastructure back to the free center, take your pick. But it's going to be a second reading for that discussion. A couple points, and we'll see if there's any questions on this item. In feedback with council members, it's been pretty clear that a few of the folks who are least supportive, have the most questions, however you want to describe that frame or that point of view, have especially been off-put, or have been saying that they're willing to go along with, I don't mean to put words in that point of view's mouth, but moving ahead with the free center, so long as there aren't city taxpayer dollars involved. Okay, well, you get into some definitional things, and I don't want to sidetrack onto that, but what I do want to point out is that the capital improvements dollars that are being proposed to be appropriated, so if a set of plans was developed and there was support to actually, engineer and build these water and sewer lines, there'd be an appropriation to do that. That's really what the legislation does. That money, that capital improvements fund, really came from the sale of the former HTI building. And so Rod Mosier is the individual that writes the checks with Mosier, and so he's I think, I could be wrong, but I think they're 2/3 the way of paying for that building, and that money, I think, is one more payment.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, it is those dollars that are being proposed to be spent as capital improvements. So, for some people it doesn't matter, it's just blah, blah, blah from, what people would discount as a politician. And I'm sorry people feel that way. But for those people who are trying to make some careful judgments about how to build a major recreation center that serves the community and maybe the region, it's a little more important than that. So that's what's up tomorrow night. I wouldn't want to make a guess on whether or not there'll be a suspension of rules. Personally, I'm of the opinion that the sooner council makes a decision on that, the better. We received word, we as the community, from the Department of Development Services Administration, the group that is the funder of the roadway project that we talked about a few weeks ago that were secured through the Crawford Partnership, and the city will be the recipient of. That goes to the controlling board, so that will be state approval of that. So, certainly, if we want to convey a positive impression there, it's, I think, real helpful that we get that passed. So, tune in tomorrow night, stay tuned. I think that's the only piece of legislation. And so if the Free Center is important to you as a community issue, it's funny, no big surprise, and maybe not funny in a laughable way, but it's being turned into a political issue. And I'm not going to lecture long about that, but I don't see how it serves the interests of getting that facility done. There's a divisive nature to what we're trying to build consensus around, and politicizing it by running sort of propped up special purpose candidates in the various council seats or for citywide office. It's just not, I don't know. There's something that too much the sign of the times about how people think that you try to conduct public business. So, all right, if any of the people that might be aware of who I'm talking about, they're probably smart enough not to be goaded, but we'll see if we can get some questions on that. All right, what do we got? I know we have a few questions.
Yep, I do have a couple here. First one tonight came from Mary.
Yep.
She asked, who is responsible to maintain the road between the service rails and the actual tracks on Atwood Street? It's very rough.
It's the railroad. Short question. And I don't know. It's not. I'm not laughing at the question, but I was talking with the passenger rail about how I've been talking to the railroads and this and that. It's like, on that topic, we can talk kind of till we're blue in the face. But what I'm hoping is there, Mary. You go back a couple of weeks, we had made an announcement, I think, on this Monday night, and then on our website about the closure of the Portland Way crossing. And then a couple of days later, we came back out and tried to communicate that that was off. The crew that is going to replace that was all off sick. And so my hope is, and we'll try to redouble our efforts as it relates to Atwood, and see that, while you're in town with those guys fixing Portland Way, what are the chances of, if even some pothole patching. But the answer of the city, it's probably not good practice to just go out there anyways and just do it. It is railroad property. That's that screwy crossing where there's that stop sign. You didn't ask this question, but just since it's on my mind, that's because that particular area, which is about as crappy, we'll use that term, as there is along that crossing. That's that's a private crossing entirely. It's not public utility regulated. So that's a particular crossing that you don't really have anyone to complain to about, but they certainly need to maintain it. It's kind of a mess, and what I'd like to hope is that they'll do at least some minor repair when they're here doing Portland Way. So it's railroad stuff, like anything I think a lot of people can relate to this, that you've done as part of your career, and you get starting to talking about it, and you can't stop. So I'll just leave it there, though. Our approach on passenger rail is, like I said, it's about safety, grade crossing safety, wayside signaling safety. That means the trains can be apprised of what's coming on the track. and grade separation. And here I go, man. I have such self-control issues. They're going to talk about spending billions, okay? So I don't think it's acceptable, and probably hundreds of thousands on stations, that if this thing doesn't work, what's it going to be? So, and you know what, we have a station, but we weren't asked, so we won't go there. But I think for communities that will see increased blockage of grade crossings, like we for certainly will on Portland Way South because of the way the trains come through Galleon, I think it's totally appropriate that we start early and don't give up our guns, so to speak, on, we need an overpass. That's a compromise, maybe in the funding of it, but there's no compromise in safety on this. So, we have another question?
Yes. I've got
Okay,
two
we'll make
more.
them wait for a second. As usual, I have one more thing to say about that. Let's say in a handful of years this happens, and that'd be a good thing, and the train goes, we don't have a grade separation. There are more people from Galleon who are trying to get to Columbus for work on a daily basis than will ever ride a train. And I love riding trains. So, hey, by the way, the guy from Amtrak, he took a plane to Ohio. So I don't know what that says exactly, but not great confidence in the existing Amtrak service from Chicago to Cleveland or anywhere along the North Coast. So, all right. Done throwing all of those spitwads or whatever. All right.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Next question tonight came from Tom. He suggested the city spend the money along with the HTI building payments on storm sewer for the southeast part of town.
I agree, and that's really is what we're doing, Tom. Now, if we took that money, that would perhaps accelerate the rate. And now that he mentioned it, there's a kind of an odd small project that we're working on now. If you know where I'm talking about, you know. But there's a lot of cuts across the roadway on East Street and Wood and Riblet and that part of town. A couple of them on Dawson. That project is necessary to construct the next project, which is a much bigger project that it starts going towards what I call the number streets: First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third, Hensley. The next project is a big project, Tom, and in terms of its scope and the cost, I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out. Now, important to note that, sounds funny, every year that I've been mayor, no, honestly, over the last 7 or 8 years, we built a project. You can go back and look. Maybe there was a year that was skipped where we've tried to incrementally move on a plan, if you will, a master plan on stormwater that's older than I am. It was part of the city manager era, and it makes all the sense in the world to just keep doing that from an engineering point of view. So, to wrap that question up, we are building systematically. Now, maybe our systematic is a little slow, and I think that's a point for discussion, debate. But we're putting 300,000 to 400,000 one major project a year to try to get all the way out there to 6th Avenue and beyond. So it's a top infrastructure priority, and maybe the only difference, if you were rating the importance of those two, is one is renewing, or in some cases in the stormwater that we're talking about, installing active stormwater kind of for the first time that will have a long-term benefit. Now, in my opinion, the fact that there is a fair likelihood, I think a good likelihood, that something will be developed out there in in the north end of town that may allow that investment in infrastructure to turn into more investment in likely commercial property. So kind of a long answer. I'm not sure if Tom or anyone would expect anything else. I want to make one more comment about what I think it's good to envision about what we're going to try to do with that next project I referenced. If you live out on any of the numbered streets or drive out there a lot, on some of the east-west streets, Walnut, Smith, along there, you would, one of the things you would see if you look at stuff like I do is that there's no curbs and there's really not much of a catch basin and stormwater system. So as we start to engineer these bigger projects, this next one there, that will run from kind of where we end, probably through 3rd Avenue. Folks know like about at East Park, there's a sort of a natural dip there, and so that's probably the next. It's a pretty big project. Our hope is to be able to afford to curb and gutter the streets. I mean, you put in catch basins, but you don't have good drainage, good collection off the street, you're really not helping a lot. And so our hope is to be able to fund that. And that puts a different spin, if you will, potential on future investment. I think if you had if you will, a more modern look to the streets, that you would see investment in existing homes, and there's a few lots out there in that same area, if you're familiar with it, that could be developed or redeveloped. So I think the upside to Tom's question and argument is that if you fixed up the storm sewer, made the streets kind of 21st century, not just gravelled over, like they, admittedly, they're some of those same streets I'm talking about aren't in good shape today. But if you improved those, curbed and guttered those, and then resurfaced them, I think that would have a big impact on the marketability, for sure the livability out there. Heck, about marketing to the next person, it would make it a drier, more orderly out there for the existing residents. So I don't know, Tom. I'm agreeing with you, and I'm saying we have been putting money in. Maybe not as much as we could, but the next project's going to be a doozy. So, anything else?
Yeah, and actually sticking to the same topic,
Yeah.
Paul suggested improving the storm sewer and drainage on Park Avenue to prevent backups in houses.
Yeah, I think I think whether you're talking about Park or Walker or any of those streets down there, it's an older part of town, and it's real flat. I think I'm not sure if
Paul.
Okay, yeah, no, but I mean, I'm not sure if he, is real familiar with it or not. Or he just lives there and he's got water, and I don't want to get into this, and it's not a laughing matter, but I had 1 foot of water in my mom's basement, so I'm in the same boat. Ha ha ha. So this last round of water really brings all of those stormwater. It stretches you to the peak. We have just completed some relining of the major trunk sewer, the sanitary sewer through there. Doesn't really address the stormwater that you're talking about, Paul. See, I'm trying to make this a shorter answer. When you're worried about water coming up in your neighborhood on Park or Erie or Walker, you're bailing or trying to hope the sump pump stays up, you'd really don't have time to say, "Excuse me, honey, I'm going to go down and look at the Olentangy." But if you did, you would see that part of the problem there is that there's no outlet along the creek. It really becomes the Olentangy River, And so I can't speak specifically to his situation, but that's one of the things we're fighting. That you're trying to move stormwater, there's not much drop, and our creek rises pretty quickly, It was still running pretty fast and up near the top of the banks, but our stormwater outlet, Paul's stormwater outlet, was likely blocked. And so that often is the problem. So I'll stop trying to play engineer, pass along your comments to our maintenance staff who are, there's good engineers because they're around it every day, and see if my answer is a bunch of malarkey, or which I don't think it is, or that's kind of the issue. So as low as those neighborhoods are, there isn't much fall to get it out into the Olentangy. Heck, most of the time that pipe's got plenty of what's called freeboard, but as deep as the creek was the last couple of days, there just isn't anywhere for that pipe to outlet. So, all right. Not a very satisfying answer. I wish we could throw a bunch of money at it and the problem would go away. But that particular stormwater, right near the creek, near the river, we're going to be fighting it when we have those big rains.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Last question I had as of right now came from Dawn. She asked for an update on a grocery store.
Yeah, we knew that was coming, Dawn. I have an incremental report, and it is fourth hand if you count the passing of the information from Matt to me. It comes, our chamber president, I think that's executive director, whatever, Miranda Jones, had some interaction with one of the leasing people, the top leasing people at Perrin over at the end of last week, and confirmed that there's progress. They are working with the frequently named prospect. They confirmed that. So that stuff is true. They're trying to work out some issues on the facility and how those improvements are made. And so let's keep our fingers crossed. Seems like 3 years, y'all, and a long time. Sometimes time travels fast. I guess that's when you're having fun. It doesn't seem to travel fast on this topic. But 3 years ago, I took the attitude, Mr. Free Market, Mayor O'Leary, and that is, hey, there's more to be gained by the operator of the potential grocery and by the landlord than there is, by the city government as itself. And so I stood by my guns on that a couple of years, I think, Matt. And then began to get more active in thinking that the city may have to have a more active role in helping to get a new facility bought or whatever. So whether it was Tom's previous question about stormwater or a dozen other demands or in needs for city funds, we got plenty of areas that we can make this town better. I'd be a happy person, one of the happiest people in the community, if we got a full service grocery store up and running, and the city played nothing but maybe we'll provide the music and the round of applause if we can get to that point. So there you go, Dawn. Long answer. I think the private sector's working on it. So I won't say anything more to jinx it, but we'll assist if asked in any kind of specific way, and I think it's a matter of months. It's not tomorrow. It's not the next day. But as the activity up there happens, it's funny how that spins up in different social media groups and Facebook networks and stuff start speculating on it. So as the construction or remodeling proceeds, everybody will be wanting to look through the windows, won't they, Matt?
Yes.
They ought to maybe cut an area out and sell 2 minutes of watching it be remodeled for, $5 or $2. I don't know. There certainly would be a lot of happy people, myself included, Dawn, if they can get it past the finish line. So. All right, anything else?
Those were all the questions I had.
All right, let me see here. We got a minute or two. I'm going to We are working actively with the building projects that have been put on hold. I think there's a specific pitch. This gets into next week, I believe. Port meeting tomorrow or next week?
Tomorrow.
Okay, never mind. It's tomorrow. I'm going to be making a pitch, offering an idea of how the port may provide assistance to get either the apartment project moving again and or the residential project that I think a lot of people are bumming because the construction price, particularly the price of lumber. So, I don't know, noodling on an idea. If you keep your ear to the ground or talk with somebody that's been to the port meeting, that will tomorrow, they'll probably be able to detail it. I've talked with a handful, I think there's 6 members, 5 members, there's 6 right now, members of the port. I've talked to 3 or 4 of them about the idea, so it won't come as a great surprise, and it may not be wildly received by everyone, but we have to, as a community, be on the side of getting past this lumber price and assisting the developer to get these projects started. So we'll kind of, if that's not too much of a tease, we'll kind of leave it at that. Anything else?
No, that is everything.
That is all. Okay. Next Saturday, quick preview. A week from tonight, we're going to go over, and before that, we're going to go over and go through the depot, give people a flavor of how close the community is to having that up and running and functioning, and with the goal of promoting the 20 seconds depot days. Okay. The other big thing, some people can't hardly wait. I know I'm one of them. That'll happen the 22nd. Is the community cleanup, and we're going to work on that a little bit. We got a little bit of a gap on the grant that pays for the removal of the mattresses and the tires. But when you think of what the average person brings up there for us to take, a lot of it are tires and mattresses. So we've got a week or so to figure out how to have that service. And sometimes this idea of we're not going to do it unless we get a grant to do it, that doesn't really answer the issue of public health and nuisance of mattresses and tires. So hang in there. Throw spitwads at me if we don't come up with a way to get those dirty old mattresses and unwanted tires. But we're certainly going to be in the used furniture business. So either get rid of that used couch, or if you're really frugal, come on up, and you may, what is that? One person's trash is another one's treasure. So heck, come up. You might find a TV stand or a slightly loved and worn couch. But that's the 22nd. All of it's both the depot days and the community cleanup are within a block and a half of each other. So if perchance you get caught in that hellacious 25-minute traffic jam, just be patient and think this could be every day if we didn't live in Galion. So that's a big thing on the 22nd. Depot Day should be real fun. We'll hype the heck out of that next week with a neat walkthrough of the depot, and then honestly plan ahead so that you're ready to make our day on the 22nd. The mayor's staff will be out there, and maybe some crazy folks from the health department staff. But I'm kind of promises. I'm going out on a limb. We'll make sure we can do tires and mattresses. Otherwise, some people, if we don't take them, they'll end up dropped off on the way home, and we'll just be out there picking them up on Monday or Tuesday. So, all right, we got a question?
Yeah, I had 2 latecomers.
Good.
First one came from Tom. He asked, "What is the proposed status of the proposed assisted living facility?"
Yeah, I got racked hard, Tom, by the I think probably by construction prices. but that is on hold. The property has not been conveyed, so that's how I don't know if it's on hold or canceled, somewhere in between. But the entity that was going to build it doesn't own the property, and I think that's kind of a good thing in the long run. If the project's not going to proceed, then it's there to be available for some other likely residential assisted living type thing, or a continued growth of the medical facilities that are available here in the community. So, yeah, that's one, huh?
Next question came from Shirley. She asked, who will be replacing Chief Satterfield?
I think that's public, isn't it?
Yes.
Lieutenant Mark Rodriguez. It's a great question, and we're not trying to be secretive or coy. That process probably deserves a 10-minute sometime for interested, but it is very much prescribed by civil service rules locally and state law kind of generally. And so, heck, if you wanted to be chief, you might not even have known that there were interviews. You knew that perhaps he was retiring, and that's because the way that process works, the way it works is you stay internal unless there is no qualified candidate or one qualified candidate. In this case, we had 3 qualified candidates apply internally, and one of the coolest things about the transition is in the recognition of Chief Satterfield and new Chief Rodriguez. The other 2 guys were at that recognition and celebration. All the lieutenants were there. The other 2 that wanted to be chief were there, and so I'm optimistic about how they'll work together. And certainly anytime you apply and put in the time to go after a job like that, you don't get it. There's some disappointment, but it really encouraging sign that everybody was at that. So I think we'll start out with Chief Rodriguez on the right foot, and he's going to need, he's going to need the community's ongoing support. I think he endeavors to earn support of his own, but some of that goodwill that many people in the community feel about our PD, I hope that transfers onto Mark. And surely he's going to be chief a hell of a lot longer, and I'm going to be mayor. So we hope we made a good choice. Fair enough. Anything else?
Nope, that was it for
Hey, that doesn't mean I'm going to pike out or leave. I mean, Mark's going to be chief for maybe not as long as Chief Satterfield, but he's got a good long run ahead of him, and I think that's an important part of that transition to a new chief. That I fully expect him to be here nearly as long as our last chief was. Super important for the community. That overturn or that turnover and turmoil, that rarely anything good comes from that. So, yep, there's the answer. Is that my friend Shirley, or is that just some other Shirley out there?
That's our friend Shirley.
All right, that Shirley, thank you for sending that message. Keep keeping me on my toes. All right. We'll talk to you later. Is anyone else out there?
No, that was it.
All right, we're gonna go right into the ether after this, Matt. So thanks for everybody being here. You got a half hour. Take a look at the council meeting tomorrow night, or tune in. You'll get a good feel for where this whole Free Center project, hopefully more generally, how optimistic council is about expansion on the north end. So I really think if you're part of Galion that wants to grow cautiously, period, but grow with some caution and some prudence, I hope you find yourself on the side of getting those dollars appropriated, engineering done, sewer water lines done, completed in cooperation with that big $460,000 that we're going to get for the state to build the roadway. So that's my pitch. I'll be here tomorrow, God willing, to pitch again during council. Tune in, Chief Rodriguez, his family, you'll get to meet them, and then we'll go into the actual meeting. And with all that said, no more questions. See you tomorrow night. See you next week. Good night.